Hi, my name is Christy, and this podcast is my pursuit to glean practical wisdom on femininity, homemaking, finances, and relationships from the God-fearing women in my life. Hope you enjoy this journey with me as we learn to smile at the future. Now let's dive right in. Hi ladies, and welcome back to the second half of the interview with Liz Tittle on buying a house as a single lady. But before you listen to this episode, I'm going to encourage you again to head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other ladies will be able to find it as well. Liz bought her house as a single woman in her 20s in California, so she has walked this road before and brings a lot of her own personal experience to the table today. This episode, Liz is going to be sharing about the benefits and joys of housemates as a homeowner and what her husband Josh thought about her owning a home when he first met her. So lots more really practical wisdom coming your way. So let's dive right back in. One thing you mentioned, Liz, is having to think through the fear of man when you bought a house and what are the men in your life going to think? You're already a firefighter, and are they going to be intimidated by the fact that you own your own home? And that, some people will say it might delay marriage. So I'm really curious, you're married now, what your husband thought of you owning a home when you were dating. Did you talk about that? Was he impressed by that? What were his thoughts?
That's a good question, and I wish he was here so he could answer it because, I'd be curious. But a little bit of our background. So let's see. I know how old we are now. He's 41. I'm 35. We got married 2.5 years ago. So if that gives you a little bit of background on how old we were when we started dating. He owned his own home that he built with his own two hands. So the fact that I owned a home was kind of a moot point, I would say. Like a lot of what I did was just didn't seem to be a big deal to him at all, which was really cool to me. After all those years of, fearing in the back of my mind that I would be too intimidating to someone. So in a sense, I think we both were kind of on level ground. I remember the first time we had a conversation, like our define this relationship conversation. He basically said, I live in Kansas. I'm really involved in my church and I have a really good job. And I think I backfired something like, well, I have a really good job and I'm really involved in my church. Like, just because, I was like, I knew I was going to end up moving to Kansas someday, but it was just, well, so do I. Like, we're both really involved in our churches. We both have good jobs. So we were very much, if you will, on the same playing field. So I don't think he thought much of it. I think he, if anything, knew it was a good stewardship. Like I was actually, when we met, I was just getting ready to start a pretty major renovation on the house. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm going to dump all this money into this house and then I'm probably just going to get married to him and move, but I can't plan my life around something that I've just met this guy. Like who knows what's going to happen. And I can't just put everything on hold just in case, So I did the renovation and learned a ton through it and really got to enjoy. In a lot of ways, I saw my home as a blank canvas and my creativity was what I got to do with it. And that was really fun. And it was helpful because it gave us both ideas of what we wanted to do with his house when we, moved in together after we got married. So as far as what he thought of it, it was no big deal to him. I will say, especially dating and getting married, what many would consider a little bit later in life. A lot of times as you get older, your options are guys who are widowed or divorced. My husband, Josh, his wife left him when he became a believer. There tends to be a little bit more history and stuff. So I don't think he thought anything of it. Honestly, I think he saw how the Lord had used it to serve others and how my personality was expressed in the home itself. So if anything, it communicated more to him than I could have necessarily with words, as anyone's home does. It communicates a lot about who they are and what they value and how they live in a lot of ways. So I don't know if that's answering your question. It's ended up, the fact that I did own a home has ended up being a huge blessing to us in our married life. For the first year of our marriage, we rented it out. So it provided an extra source of income. And then we sold it about a year after we got married. And we've been able to use the money from that to renovate his home and finish the basement, which is pretty much doubled our square footage and will basically give us a whole apartment in the basement that we can use to serve missionary families or friends or whoever. It's the Lord has used it on this end to continue to bless others. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. And it was such a wise investment because you bought it at the bottom of the housing market and you sold it near the peak. Keeping an eye on the housing market, knowing when to buy is really important. I've seen it backfire the other way with people who bought at the top and ended up losing money. So, very important that you make that wise choice of when to buy. One of the maybe fears of owning a home is that you'll attract the wrong type of man who just kind of wants to marry into the stability of that and maybe not be responsible himself. Did you want to say anything on that or?
Yeah, I would say to some extent that was a fear of mine. Like, was a guy just going to look, I got a ready-made life, wife included, house, wife, car, whatever. But I think with any dating relationship, time and truth go hand in hand, I think is the quote. If he has a job and is being responsible with his finances, it should be pretty evident, I would say. And if it's not evident, ask about it. Like, dating is the time to ask hard questions about money and kid raising and, what's important to you. I mean, stuff as simple as, but very controversial, vaccines can be a make or break it for some people in a relationship, or it might tell you a little bit about how a person thinks. And it's an opportunity to talk about those things. So just because it's uncomfortable to talk about money definitely doesn't mean you should avoid it. So if you kind of get a sense that someone's in it for the easy ready-made life, and ask hard questions and get other people you respect, other godly couples involved, and have conversations about how money is spent and budgets, and especially as if you're approaching marriage and engagement, those things have to be talked about. But it's definitely not a reason to not pursue it. If I had never gotten married, like, the house was great. It was perfect for what I needed as far as shelter over my head and then the ability to serve others. And I could have gotten really old and died in that house because it was all one level. I could literally back my car up into the front door and unload groceries. And, even if the market did go up and then back down, if I stayed in it long term, I was investing back in myself. Like, if you can buy at the bottom of the market, so you're pretty much always upside right on your loan, that's great. And if you plan on staying it long term, you don't really have to worry about the market going up and down. You're staying in it, you're paying off your loan, you have collateral that you have, property. Yeah, it did provide a sense of comfort and confidence knowing I had a home. I didn't have to worry if my rent was going to go up or if my lease was going to get given to someone else, or, that's my home, and I could be creative with it the way I wanted to. I could put nails in the wall if I wanted to, I could knock out walls if I wanted to.
Yeah, and I just have to speak. You were so organized, and I just loved going into your house. It was so well decorated and comfortable, and you had this big island and kitchen and back patio, and you just hosted so many things there and would bring believers together. And I remember, just different times you had dinners where you would invite others in and want to talk about a specific point on theology or evangelism or something of that nature, and just being very purposeful in your hospitality. So you did that so well. You were just glorifying the Lord in how you used that resource and serving others. We're going to do a whole separate episode on the topic of roommates, but I just thought I would bring this up quickly, that one of the maybe dangers of if you're buying or living by yourself is that you lose that opportunity to serve others and prefer others' needs above your own.
In my observation, I worked in a male-dominated environment. Men are created to work as teams. They work great together as teams. Like, yes, they have their scuffles and their disagreements, but usually, as I'm sure you've seen with your brothers, they kind of have it out and then it's over and they move on. They do gossip just like women. Yeah, they just kind of have it out. Women are way more territorial. It's almost as if God designed us to be the queen of our home. Like, this is our space, and this is, we have a huge influence on the mood and the heart, if you will, of a home. So yes, having roommates is a great opportunity for sanctification as a single person when you otherwise might just always have everything your way. I know I was challenged by having roommates when things didn't get maintained the way I preferred. And so it was a great opportunity for conflict resolution and, bringing to attention like, hey, it really bothers me when I go to work for 3 days and I come back and the same dishes are still in the sink. Could you please do the dishes? Just as an example. And sometimes I would, after saying something, it would still happen. And I had to learn, like, I could come home and just be angry about it, or I could just cheerfully do the dishes and serve my roommates. I had to learn, and not that that had to be the response. Like, I could have chosen to handle it in another different godly way, but it was an opportunity. That's how I chose to. Like, I can't keep coming home angry that the dishes have been here for 2 or 3 days. Like, I just need to cheerfully serve them. I've tried talking about it, and it's, who knows why they're still here. You know, maybe they were busy. Things like that are really helpful. I will say that I found the best roommate situations in general were roommates that started out as people I didn't know very well, but knew enough about them to have them move in. And then, so the business aspect of the relationship was handled first, and then a friendship developed over time. Not saying it has to be that way. I just feel like my friend Tara, like, I knew her sister. I knew enough about her to know I would feel comfortable living with her, but we didn't really know each other that well. So we kind of she was the main, like, she had rented the house, and then I became her roommate. Just the kind of getting the money issues out of the way first, and then developing a friendship kind of comes along, versus like being friends and now all of a sudden you have to talk about money and rules and house rules, and it can make that friendship awkward.
That's really helpful. You don't have to be best friends with a roommate, but yeah, you don't want to go in with that comfort level all at first, and then not want to ruffle the feathers of your friendship by discussing the hard facts.
Right. And if you are going to invite a friend to be a roommate, like, just make sure right off the bat you have, if you will, a hard discussion where you set boundaries and expectations and when the rent is due. And yeah, you do have to learn a bit of leadership. It's a good, again, that's a good opportunity as well, and communication and problem solving. But
probably so many overlaps into marriage, and working on a lot of those things up front probably made that transition more smooth. I mean, it's different when you're living with a guy, I'm sure, but but a lot of those just the principles of preferring someone else's needs and desires, and they're going to have a different way of doing things, and that's okay, and knowing what things are worth talking about, what things are worth covering with love. Yeah, and being willing to just work hard. And, with any relationship, giving 100% and not expecting a 50-50 approach probably helps in the roommate situation as well.
As far as considering when to buy over renting, I would say if you have a good idea of, what your credit score is, that you have a good credit score, the market is amicable to you purchasing, such as right now, for example, the market is right now it's a seller's market. Like, the houses are going for really high, the interest rates are low. I honestly would wait another year or two, especially because this is an election year. Like, if you were looking in the next year or two to purchase, I would give it a little bit of time and let the market correct itself, because it's been really, really high. And, be saving, set a goal for what you'd like to have as a down payment. Be looking, working on your credit, making sure you're paying things on time. Yeah, if you have the opportunity to buy, I would definitely encourage, if you can buy, like, instead of money, like I said, going every month into somebody else's investment that you'll never see again. That $500, that $800 could be going into your own investment to something you will see again. You're just paying off a loan. Like, that money is going back to you essentially every month.
And maybe you're not set up to buy in the next year, but maybe you could at least just start thinking about saving for a down payment, and maybe in 5 years or whenever you're ready to. But it takes a lot of foresight and planning to do a big decision like this. So starting to at least think about it early and start saving is probably a good place to start for a lot of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even, especially as I look back at California, like, it's hard, especially for like you have most of your family there. I'm very thankful not to be in Southern California to raise my family right now, especially. So if you are, if it's really important to you, looking to maybe buy somewhere out of your comfort zone, but as one of your primary things to look for would be a good church. Like, make sure you're going somewhere with a good church, and then obviously a job. You can't buy a house without a job. So, but there are places where it's way more affordable to buy a home. Talking with people who are in construction or who are in home inspecting or whatever about things that you should look for, or people who are in real estate, things like that. There's conversations you can have that can help you get your mind around what would be good things to look for in a home. But pray about it and trust the Lord. Like I went into it probably really naive in a lot of ways, and the Lord was gracious and provided.
I think the positive of your decision making, though, you didn't have like paralysis of analysis. Like you said, you purchased the first home that you looked at. It was a good fit. You decided to go with it. And I think sometimes we can overthink and delay a decision just because we're too scared to pull the trigger. Being wise, getting counsel, but you have to make a decision at some point.
Yes. And that's something I see, especially in today's society, is people are more afraid of doing something that might be bad than just not doing anything at all. And not doing anything is doing something. Like it is a choice. So just absolutely. And I probably err a little bit on the side of just making quick decisions, but the Lord has used that in many ways, obviously, to make me good fit for the fields that I've worked in. You have to make quick decisions. You can't just sit there and, well, what would be the best thing to do right now? You just have to do it. But it's definitely bit me sometimes because I haven't analyzed things enough. But yes, I got advice from an older couple in my life, and they came and looked at the house, and he was into finances and stuff, and he thought it would be a good fit, and it was just kind of like, all right, I'm going to bite the bullet. It's going to be really tight, but I'm going to trust that.
The key word is trust. There's certain decisions we just have to the best of our knowledge, we think this is the right decision. We pray about it. We leave the rest up to the Lord. We take that step of faith forward. I think, Liz, I'm similar to you in that regard. I tend to make quick decisions with not a lot of thought. So I really value the input that I get from others to help me pose questions to me that I might not have thought about. I'm quick to action, slow to think, and that served me well in some areas, but not in others. So
I'm glad God makes us all different. Like we have different strengths and weaknesses and can truly as a team help each other. Yeah, there's stuff I'm like, why didn't I think of that? I should have thought through that. And sometimes there's no way you would have anticipated what happens, but you feel like you should have known or something.
Hindsight is 20/20, and it always is very clear from the other side. But now you have a husband who can, I'm sure Josh helps you think through things from different angles now when you're making a big decision.
Yep, he's actually on his way to go pick up a minivan right now, and I don't like buying new cars, and he found a new car that's he was able to get a price that is the price of basically a 2-year used couple 30,000 miles on a minivan. So to me, it's like, I hate spending money. I hate, like, we just paid off one car loan, and okay, now we're going to get another one. But, we need a reliable vehicle that we can fit our family in, and he found it. And yeah, we really just want to fit in at church. It's a matter of, fear of man. But I'm just kidding. But it's hard. Yeah. But he's done his research, and it is hard, coming from being very independent and financially independent to go, okay. I'm excited about it, but at the same time, like, I've never had a new car before. I don't like buying new cars where you lose money as soon as you go off the lot, but he's done his homework, and it really looks like a good decision, where it's like he's basically buying a new car at a used car rate. But we're different. We're very similar in a lot of ways, but we're very different. And it's fun to get to trust him and trust the Lord through trusting him and trust that it's a good decision for our family.
God blesses your attitude when you choose to submit. And even if it's a decision that you don't think is wise, but when you submit, God blesses that. Closing thoughts, Liz, anything burning you want to share with all the single ladies and the couple of single guys who are listening in?
Work hard. You're going to have to work hard to make a mortgage payment, but you're working hard to make a rent payment. And it may mean saying no to eating out quite as often or a latte a couple times a week or whatever. But those are worthy sacrifices to make to be a good steward of finances and to make an investment that has the potential to double or not, or just providing a base from which you can serve others. So yeah, I think real estate is one of the most, the most secure investments you can make in many cases, and sometimes not, but you actually have something to show for your money. It's not like the stock market. So yeah, it can be very, very intimidating to be, if you will, strapped like that. But at the same time, it can be a really wise and good investment and a really fun opportunity to grow and learn in a whole bunch of other ways that we, like you said, we could do a whole nother podcast on what it's like to be a homeowner as a single woman and making decisions about hiring contractors or fixing something myself or saving up for different upgrades or changes, and having a contingency in my budget for when things go wrong and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot to be learned, but kind of like you were saying, paralysis by analysis. Like if you think about all of the responsibilities that come with owning a home, you may never decide to do it, but there's a lot that you can learn, and it can prepare you to be a helpful wife, or to serve others, or to just, that's the way life is. And I think sometimes, especially as Christian women, we think, well, I'll get married and, my husband will take care of that. Well, there's no guarantee that even if you do get married, your husband won't be incapacitated or, be taken from you from what we would consider an early standpoint. And to have some knowledge of like how finances work and how to maintain a home is a good thing. So those are good things to learn. So they shouldn't be seen as intimidating to guys, or it's a wise thing. Yeah, like I said, look at Proverbs 31. She was no wallflower or pansy when it came to responsibilities in life. She handled business. So.
And you want to be able to collaborate too if you get married, and talk through these important issues with someone, and from a place of knowledge and wisdom. So it's good to not just delegate that to, that's the man's world. I'm not even going to delve into anything that has to do with that topic, but realizing that that's one of the ways you can be a good helpmeet, is understanding different things to be able to be a sounding board or talk through things with a future spouse. So just one of those, like, looking ahead to the future. I think there are ways that you can prepare if you do want to be married someday, and preparing yourself now. Liz, definitely wanted to interview you on this topic specifically because you have lived this and you did it well. And I knew you'd have valuable wisdom and advice to share to all the other ladies listening. So thank you so much for sharing all that. And I know it'll be an encouragement to everyone, and maybe put a bee in somebody's bonnet, or just get someone thinking about a topic that they might not have thought about before, and maybe even just starting now to set some long-term goals for their life in that area of housing. So appreciate you taking the time, and looking forward to doing future episodes with you down the line.
My pleasure. Thank you, Christy.